Welcome to the Northern Powerhouse interview series, where we're unashamedly spreading good news by interviewing Northern businesses and their successes during the pandemic. Subscribe to be notified of new interviews or click the link in the description to take part if you'd like to be interviewed yourself in a future episode. Great. Well, this afternoon on Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews. Today we have Sam Morgan of Paria. So Sam, welcome. And it'd be great if you could just introduce yourself to the audience in terms of who you are, what your business does, and how you serve your clients.
Yeah, as you rightly said, I am Sam. And my brand Paria, we produce fashion forward cycling clothing, accessories, bits and pieces. So that's under the Paria brand, but we also do team kit, custom kit, for like effectively businesses, brands. You know, we work with people like Red Bull, we've worked with KPMG, those sort of guys to produce cycling kits for events, and then we'll also work with craft brewers and little startups. So that's us.
Amazing. And I am specifically interested in how you've Paria as a name, as a brand. How did that come about?
Yeah, Paria is literally, although not literally as you spell it in the UK, but it's a social outcast. So it's not the leper, but it is the social outcast. And it was ideally, we set it up to cater for people who didn't feel looked after by the Commonwealth Garden cycling brands which are out there. So both from a clothing perspective, but also from a cultural perspective as well. So it's a team for people who don't want to be in a team, basically.
Brilliant. So yeah, it's standing out. Sounds fantastic. Super. So, you know, one of the key things, obviously, we've experienced over the last 10 months now is the COVID outbreak, the lockdown, etc. So, keen to know how that whole experience has affected you in the business.
Yeah, I mean, if you rewind back to, what would it be, November last year, I actually put one business in administration and started another one up, and I was in two minds what I was going to do in terms of to continue and whether the brand would survive. I was doing some consulting work myself, and the website was just taking over. And then I've actually taken a bit of, some consultancy or some consultants myself into the business, and was just starting to sniff around working with those guys. And then obviously all the good stuff happened in terms of a global pandemic. I took the decision at that point to move all my fulfillment literally a week into lockdown or 2 weeks into lockdown, thinking it'll be quiet, no one will really be interested in cycling kit. And I was massively wrong. So the 2020 vision of hindsight would be that was a bad move, Sam. And we just got, 5-10 times uplift in sales, went absolutely through the roof. Yeah, huge. I mean, it's been a big, it depending, obviously not across the entire site, but if you're looking on an average basis, it's just huge. So everyone's buying kit, everyone's buying clothing, people especially in the summer, everyone's commuting. Now in the UK, are you commuting? Probably not, because you've been nuts or you're hardcore, and you value your life, so you probably stay off two wheels. And a lot of people are staying at home anyway. Yeah, directives. But yeah, so it's been, I've had a few conversations around this, and effectively we're profiting out of other people's poor situation, but it's been one of those things. People have been sat at home. A lot of people, myself included in this, have just been spending money on things to make them feel better, but then also like practical kit and getting out on the bike. So I know, in a nutshell, it has been positive the last 12 months.
Yeah. I mean, my personal opinion is, in all honesty, you're helping people get out and get fit. So if that's profiting, that's providing a need. I think that's what most of us are here to do in business, is solve a problem and provide a need. So I think it's great that people have bought your. I would rather people spend money on your site than on, I don't know, fast food or whatever else might be. So I think it's pretty cool. So I would imagine, just looking at what the challenges you faced, I would imagine the challenges are more to do with growth and logistics of increased order size.
Yeah, 100%. It's like I said, I've had to take, the guys who were starting to work with me have had to come on board because we've had to scale very, very quickly. And a new fulfillment asset, it was an absolute car crash. Plus, Royal Mail didn't help themselves, DPD didn't help themselves. Everyone, because it just increased pressure on e-commerce as a general rule. And most people will realise this: if you're buying something, especially at those points, people were very good to a point, and COVID kind of could be used as an excuse to a point, but it wore thin quite quickly. And we've from our supply, so from our factory who've been making the stuff, right the way through to the guys who are sending it out, everyone's been on reduced head count and had to implement social distancing. So that in itself has kind of curtailed what we've done. And then also I've had to replenish stock at the rate of knots and also have the cash to do it. And it's been one of those things. So it's been growing pains in a very, very kind of focused and concerted method, really. So
I can totally get that. It's funny that growth comes with potentially as many challenges as the opposite in different ways, just different challenges. So what sort of adaptations have you had to make specifically, as a result of lockdown and the last few months?
There's now 4 of us, where there was just me 12 months ago. So there's 4 of us involved. I've finally relinquished, I was saying this isn't a challenge, but this is I've relinquished my social media duties. So I now somebody manages that completely. So no longer am I sat on the toilet at 11 o'clock on a Saturday morning posting out on Instagram with a Paria feed. But that has improved the quality of it, and then I've got somebody who's picking up all the customer service piece and taking all that on. So, that's one of the changes that we put in place. Back office, all the kind of accounting systems and everything is now actually operational, whether before it's probably paying lip service. And then we've linked up. We are an island, but globally we've linked up as well. So we've improved our international logistics as well. So he's a third party to do that. And that's really that will step change us. We've never done anything like that before. And it's just been all organic. And then linked into that is the actual digital work we're doing as well. So it's all there for the taking, I think.
Wonderful. Sounds great. I wasn't intended to, but I guess the thing that comes to mind is the B word in terms of Brexit. And
I think the F word would come out from me linked to the B word, to be honest.
Yeah, I totally get it. And it wasn't the intention, but I guess how will that? Are you clear on how that might affect you?
Yeah, I mean, really, there's going to be delays, I think, and it's just cost price increases coming through, and no longer have we got. I think it's going to be a bit of unknown. My factories aren't fully geared up for it because, quite frankly, they don't give a shit. I mean, they're just like, it's our problem, not theirs. I'm going to make it their problem, and and they're going to have to realise that they're going to have to work with us. But it's taken so much time, and no one's really know what it's going to look like. So it's very difficult to fully prepare for something if you don't know what it is.
Yes.
So, and then it's. Realistically, we're not going to fall on our arse, and we will be able to move on. But I think it does I wouldn't say we're a start because we've been around for a bit, but as a kind of SME, it is worrying. And those every single pound in your pocket makes a difference. And if you're suddenly having to put, however much it ends up being, if it's 10, 20, 30% on top of what you're charging, people are going to feel it, and people are going to notice it.
Yeah. Well, let's hope we get a deal, so at least we get the surety of it rather than the lack of surety of no deal. So, you mentioned that the sales have gone. What are the key wins that would you say over this? I mean, 5 times sales is incredible. What else have you seen?
I mean, there's been a number of different demands put on us. Really, there's a few opportunities in terms of looking at sourcing for other brands. Because our buying power is now increased, because our purchasing, volume increased. So we're looking at being a bit of a third-party manufacturer ourselves to a certain extent. And then distribution internationally, we've been picked up by some distributors. Some are kind of quite scary hitters in Southeast Asia, where I thought it was just a blag message on Instagram that was coming to me. And it turns out it's some huge, absolute massive conglomerate in South Korea. So I was like, Jesus Christ, it's been slightly worrying in one respect, but great in another. So there's a lot of, it's just opened up a lot of doors, really. And the other thing is, if you look at it back, sort of like I would have said, backwards into the business, you start attracting people who see you as an opportunity either for investment or for growth or you know, and as we were chatting out, you know, before we started the podcast, I mean, the opportunity to acquire other businesses and other brands also sort of lends itself there. So you start doing all these things that you never thought were possible, really. So,
yeah, we were talking about that. It is an opportunity. We've said to a lot of our clients right from the start, the ones that are in a reasonably healthy position, and you know, everyone's position is what it is. We don't take any pleasure or lack of it for where they are. But for the businesses that are stable and solid with maybe some cash reserve, there are, you know, in effect, everything's up for sale at the moment.
Yeah.
You know, people are, you know, because of the fear that's still around, people will be open to do that, i.e. potentially our competitors. The other thing we're finding is, even if they're not interested in selling the business, if they've hunkered down, they're not servicing their clients, they're not marketing to their clients are up for sale because the clients probably feel a little bit unloved. So, you know, we will see the investment, I believe, right now. You know, your pound investment in marketing is going to get way more return right now than it would have done 12 months ago because there's few people playing in that field.
Yeah, for sure. It's been this adaptation really, and it's been interesting and a lot. You know, I do a lot of work with the hospitality industry, and it's been very interesting. Some people have shut the doors. You know, other people have adapted and grown. And I've got a lot of mates. I've got quite a few mates in the brewing industry, and they've flown actually.
Yeah.
Whereas I've expected the inverse really.
Yeah, I guess again it sort of makes sense thinking about it, that especially if you think about the sort of the more craft ale, real ale type stuff. If you're not going to go to the pub and perhaps sample what they've got, and you're going to bring it home now, it's probably you want to drink something that you know perhaps going to enjoy more than the normal, you know, average beer that you have just in case you don't go to the pub, I guess.
It tees back. I mean, a lot of the kind of premiumisation and getting all the kind of you said craft in the first place. That's where a lot of people are like, well, if I'm staying in, I want to look after myself and get something really, really nice and really treat myself because that's pretty boring otherwise. And again, this is kind of what we've seen in terms of like people buying our stuff. You know, people kind of want to treat themselves. So you see, I hate to sound cynical on that, but like you said, it's a business at the end of the day, and it's just opening yourself up to all these different people and these opportunities. You know,
I mean, yeah, I mean, you know, ultimately the language of business is money and profit. It's if we don't like that, we probably should be in business. So if we're going to do it, we might as well, in my opinion, do it well. And in the case of many businesses we work with, you know, they do something beneficial to other people as a result of doing it. So it's a thing for good. I heard, just going off a little bit, but I remember hearing Sir Digby Jones speak probably 12 odd years ago, it was a while ago now. The ex-chairman of the CBI, and he was just talking about how people perceive businesses and business owners in a negative way, and he believed business can and should be a force for good. We can do good things by making profit, making money. It's not just about ourselves. It's about, it can be and often should be about helping others, and that's a good thing.
Again, linked but tangential. I've had this conversation locally in Leeds in terms of some of the funding partnerships that we've got in terms of Leeds Enterprise, and then there's a few others that come out the back of it in terms of a lot of them obviously government backed and were or are still European backed. But one of the big beefs I have is that a lot of them are set up for old school business. So I could go and get a grant to go and buy a load of furniture and some fax machines. But actually what I want is somebody to help me raise my profile on the digital sphere. So basically I want to get my head above the parapet. But I don't qualify. And I don't qualify because I've not got bricks and mortar. I use a lot of freelancers who, strangely enough, have to be paid. They're not like free. You know, a freelancer is not free, for freak's sake. Anyway, and this is one of the big beefs I have is that, you know, you've got somebody here who is growing, has got an aptitude to grow, wants to go for it. Yeah, you won't give them money because they've not got a building, or they don't need some chairs, or they don't need a lathe or something like that. And I find it very blinkered. It really pisses me off, to be honest. So I've been on I was invited on a couple of forums about this in terms of with government, you know, organisations.
Right.
Yeah, which just to get the kind of you know, my opinion across and get the angle across. And they are very, very slowly realising that there is people out there.
Yeah.
And especially due to COVID. And I'll tell you what, the interesting thing is if you are at growth, they actually are interested in you rather than if you're actually suffering. So,
Yes, which is good for those that are. I think it's key that I mean, I do think they did a reasonable job of looking after businesses that are challenged. I think without the sort of the grants and the various loan situations, I think a lot of more businesses would have failed. But yeah, and I get it. In terms of sort of finance or even grants, if it's not, there is an element of asset backing. They don't sort of get it yet. Nowadays we're not a manufacturing organisation. We're not a manufacturing country anymore, unfortunately. There's a lot more service-led businesses that are never going to have, as you say, bricks or mortar or assets or vehicles or whatever else it is you could finance or secure against. And it's a different world, isn't it?
For sure.
But interestingly enough, right, and we work with a few people that on the flip side of that are using things like crowdfunding, etc., to raise finance, where that's a whole new way of raising funding. And they are finding people are quite comfortable with new business models. One of our clients has raised, I think he raised 240,000 last January for an app. And again, there's no assets associated, no bricks and mortar, but people were comfortable with well, I think the important is the concept, to be honest.
It's getting the guys. The thing is, there's money out there to support businesses like the app and us. It's getting the actual kind of process to support you. And if you don't tick a box, you automatically get, it's like reject. You're like, well, come on, if you'd actually talked to me, we could have done something here and you could help me. And I had this conversation with somebody the other week in terms of some digital marketing funding we got. And, I was saying, you giving me 5-10 grand at this stage of my journey is massive. It makes a massive difference. It's not a drop in the ocean for somebody taking £250,000 to put X, Y, and Z into his factory. But to me, that will make a big difference. Should we get that? And they're actually finally, it's like moving the Titanic around. I think, turn the Titanic around. It's just, I get in it. But it has been my pet beef that for quite some time, to be honest.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It's interesting you comment about, if you're growing, there is a bit more interest in what we do. I found, and I believe at the moment, or certainly going back over the last 6-7 months, that people need leadership. They need people with vision, people with a plan and a look forward. And it feels like that's where you are sitting now. You've decided, as a result of the marketplace, you've had the orders coming in, and you're making these choices about looking up and out rather than just surviving the situation. How do you feel about your own level of leadership?
I would have said it's been hard won over the years. So from a corporate background, I've earned my stripes, and I've also this having your own business is obviously there's so many cliches, and then like all cliches, most of them are true, but you are 24/7 living in the bloodstream, and I've had to earn these stripes. And it's interesting because I'm actually bringing a few people in now who are quite considerably younger than me, and it's refreshing in some ways, but then it's horrifically naive in others in terms of how they think this works. And I'm having to coach a lot more. But I have carrot and stick to it as well, I won't lie. But I'm having to coach a lot more and give a bit more leadership. And it's funny because this leadership thing, I've worked in the corporate background and I've had people working for me there. And now I'm bringing people in who haven't got a corporate training like me. Yeah. And you realise how good it was in most cases, and also how unprepared some people are when they come into a workplace of what they think they can and can't say and do. So in terms of my leadership, I've got a vision. I know where I want to go. I've had a number of different horizons with what I'm doing. I sometimes feel guilty when I'm sat here kind of pronouncing all this crap and proffering my opinions. But then I have been through quite a bit as well. So, it's like every day's a school day though, isn't it? So,
there's always something, isn't there? There's always something to know.
I picked up a phrase last week, and this is something that I'm quite enjoying, which was somebody said to me, you're going to have to create positive conflict in what you do. And I thought, good God, that's pretty much the mantra for my life, that. So, and that is probably going to have to be my leadership style for the foreseeable in terms of bringing things on. But the fact that, I've got other couple of people who I'm going to have to probably take on in the next 6 months. I've already got 2 people who are interested. But something is working in here, something is happening. So
evidently, I mean, that's great. And it's often difficult for some people to talk about their own sort of leadership and style, but the attraction, the law of attraction, by having strong vision, having clear vision, strong leadership, we attract the right people, and that's great. That's really great. But people need that right now, in my opinion. Whether that's into a business, into a just people that have clarity, will attract people that don't at the moment. And it is a great time to grow, because there's lots of great people out there that no longer either have a job or are still on furlough through no fault of their own. No fault of their own performance. It's just the business isn't doing well enough. So it's a great time to find great people, in my opinion.
Yeah. I've seen that. I've seen that in my own peer group, and we've been contacted fairly regularly by people. I mean, into a very, very similar situation. I mean, funnily enough, we were going to be supporting Tour de Yorkshire this time round.
Right.
It was interesting because a lot of people, and that was a bit hit and miss, and that's put on ice, thinking, well, actually, where's that going to go, and who could we get out of that, and what kind of people can we link into on that? And there's other people just out there now in the marketplace, so linked. What do I say? Linked into that. So it's there's been some cracking, and locally we get a lot of. There's the old Northern Powerhouse thing. I'm going off on a big tangent here, but we're seeing a lot more people willing to move up this direction and getting. So,
well, I totally agree. It's like and it always amazed me why people would spend 2 hours commuting from about 5 miles outside of London, when you could do London, York to London in 1 hour 50. So it's. And have a lot more benefit. No, I think it's going to be a really interesting time in the next several years. We've got, obviously, clearly we've got a lot more challenge to go through as a result of the two things that are happening right now. But for those businesses, I'm a big one for quotes as well. And someone was talking the other day about Walt Disney going to Disneyland, and the quote that I picked up from Walt Disney going back a long time when he sort of quite early days was. He said, "I'm being told there's I'm being told there's a recession going on, but I've chosen not to participate." And I think there is a big, massive element of mindset in how you look at things. Is it an opportunity? Is it a challenge, or is it an opportunity? And for many people, I think it should be an opportunity, even in sectors where there's a challenge, perhaps by being the only ones that stand out well enough.
Yeah. For sure.
So is there anything, if you look about what you had to do and had to change, is there anything in the wonderful world of 2020 hindsight that you would have done quicker?
I would have harnessed my digital presence quicker. I would have actually, I haven't done any proper paid advertising or search, well, you mentioned search engine optimization, done nothing. And, that is there for the taking. I probably would have bought. In fact, even though in terms of we've seen the demand increase, I seem to do this every year. I never seem to have to deal with Black Friday. I always end up selling out of stuff. And obviously, instantly sold out, you'll think, oh God, I should order more of that. But prior to it, you never knew that you were going to need to order more anyway. So, but yeah, there's a few things. It's capitalising on what we've had and what we've had or what we could have had really. And it was obvious. In hindsight, again, someone was always going to happen. We were always going to need to sell more T-shirts, jerseys, and shorts. I probably should have bought more, but it is what it is. It's just set us up for next year.
You do what you do. A friend of mine, a guy called Philip Hesketh, who's one of the world's best speakers, full stop, but certainly, in my opinion, the world's best speaker on persuasion influence. He's brilliant. He's got this book that was written about 40 years ago, and it's called The Power of Positive Thinking. So it's a book, Power of Positive. I can't remember the author, and he's got the second edition. It was published second edition after 1 million copies. It was 1 million copies, so they published it. And the foreword of the new edition from the author of The Power of Positive Thinking, he said, when I wrote this book 20 years ago, never did I believe it would get to 1 million copies. So I think if he can't do it, I think we all got to give ourselves a bit of a permission for maybe underthinking things. But it's a real book as well.
They need to do it for trade descriptions on that one.
Well, it is a little bit ironic, isn't it? I mean,
sure.
But there we go. So yeah, I mean, but who knows? And as you said, in hindsight, I guess, for your business, in now knowing how much people took to exercise, especially things like cycling to get outside and stuff, it was perhaps more clear. But I don't think anyone in those first couple of months was really thinking would be expected to think like that, because who knew what we were going to do? The world could have gone in different ways, but it's just wonderful that you've got such positive outcomes. So just thinking about coming out of lockdown, obviously we got the vaccine started rolling out last week, which is great. So we hopefully will move back towards a new normal, whatever that looks like. What sort of things are you most looking forward to?
Personally, or from a business perspective?
Well, yeah, both. Yeah, both. It's really interesting.
To be honest, I've always worked from a business perspective. I've always worked from home, and I've always really been an advocate of that. But I've got to admit, I've missed the kind of one-to-one contact, and the buzz you get off it. I mean, I have had meetings with some of my team now, and after every one of those, I am energized by it. And I feel like it would sound a bit cheesy, but genuinely it has helped. And that's, I mean, I want to put something. I have a view. I have a vision in terms of where I want to take the brand. I want something physical with it, not necessarily an office, but I want something physical for the brand. So that's something I'm getting, and that's something I want to get in place really. And then a lot of the cycling kit that we produce, like I said, is for teams, and they've not been able to race. They've not been able to meet up. Clubs that can't meet. All the events, all the charity events, everything we've supported over the last 6 years. Has just been cancelled and hasn't been there. So whilst we've taken, to be honest, we've sold a lot more of our branded stuff, but that edge of the business, we've had to reframe, and we've had to kind of regroup and look how we work with that. So I ended up producing face masks for a lot of people, for example, which,
Really?
I'm a cycling kit manufacturer. Am I a face kit manufacturer? Well, it turns out I am. So, so I'm looking forward to that. Personally, as we touched on, snowboarding, I can't wait to go snowboarding again, and get into the mountains and get out and actually just go for it. I won't go too much down this, but I've been out in tier 2. Won't tell you which tier I'm in at the moment, but I've been out in tier 2 for a beer. Do I want to spend 30 quid on a meal to have 2 pints? Probably not. I'll be quite nice to go for a beer and come home again. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yes, me and you both, and it's like, because the substantial meal we're getting some of the pubs is not really something I want to eat anyway. So it's like,
exactly, it costs you a tenner, and you're thinking, Jesus, why am I bothering? So.
No, so obviously you've had significant growth, and I'm really sure, having spoken to you, you're going to experience more moving forward. What challenges do you see you might have to face as a result of that?
I mean, as is every business, and I'm going to sound like a stuck record, cash is king in it. So the cash flow, the funding. I mean, interestingly, we touched on in terms of how, you mentioned the crowdfunder. We've picked up some funding via websites, so via Shopify. We picked up via Clearbank, PayPal, and there's some very forward-thinking businesses and credit lines you can get out there. But we need more. I'm having to just constantly barrage people down, basically, in terms of how to get cash. And getting, we've touched on it, but getting good people in, it's difficult. I've handed my social media over to somebody. I've had to trust them, because that messaging and that voice and that persona from the brand was very me to a certain extent, and is very unique. Well, obviously very unique. He's either unique or not, but it's unique to the brand. So that kind of needs to be engendered by other people being in the business. They need to get it, and they need to understand what we're doing. So it's a challenge as well as an opportunity, as well as something to look forward to. It's just finding those people. I'm from experience, I've been through 4 or 5 people already in terms of digital, in terms of business development, who just don't get it and it don't work. So yes,
one of the things that I was taught as part of being an action coach was, for me, all forms of marketing should have a way of measuring the return on investment. And to some extent, if it doesn't, then it probably has less value if you don't know, because ultimately, the real definition of marketing should be buying customers, i.e., how much does it cost me to get a customer? If that's less than they're going to buy, spend with me in terms of gross profit, then we've got an unlimited marketing budget. But without measurement, then we just don't know. So we're just guessing, hoping, and ultimately gambling, which is not a clever place to be, especially when cash is tight. So what have you learned about yourself over these last 9 months?
I'm probably a lot more resilient than I thought I would be. And I mean, what I've learned, like I said, I was doing some kind of contracting work, and what I've learned is that actually the pressure of not knowing whether you're going to be able to pay your mortgage the following week is actually acceptable versus whether Steve overheard you saying something and has affected your profile and therefore thinks that you should do this, but you won't be able to go and do that. So basically, I've learned is that I'm probably not going to go and work for anyone ever again. I think that's where I'm at. So I have learned that. And like, to be honest, I'm becoming a lot, I think probably a bit old age, I'm kind of a bit mellower and a bit more accepting in terms of the challenges. And it's probably not taking them as personally, I would have said. In terms of, you know, a lot of it, at the end of the day, I used to get very wound up about what people were doing, what they were saying and how they were acting. Now I just take it in my stride and just kind of move on to the next thing and, you know, be bothered about the things that I can impact on, not the things that I can't. So.
Absolutely. I was told a long time ago that it stood me good said, what other people think of me is none of my business. And the crazy thing is, the reality is they're probably actually thinking about what they're going to have for tea. So, you know, it's very central thing, but no, it's a big one. So it sounds absolutely fascinating about where we're going, but what, you know, in a few words, what do you see the future looking like for you and Paria?
For us, I think we're a sleeping giant at the moment in terms of where we're at. I think there's the opportunity you've seen it in other industries. You've seen it in things like, well, we've mentioned the skiing and the snow industry and snowboarding. You've seen it in skate, and I think it's looking to transcend, and I hate using this word because it's overused, but kind of a bit of an athleisure aspect to what we do in terms of the, you know, how many people out there do you see wearing a pair of Vans? You'll see somebody like myself who's 44, hasn't been on a skateboard since probably his mid to late teens, and he's still mincing around in a pair of skate shoes. So why can't we have that with somebody who rides bikes? It's probably even more accessible to a certain extent than a skateboard. So that's what I'm looking for, is to kind of bridge that gap and bring it into a wider audience. And, you know, to do the vernacular, but take away the wankery from the cycling market. People just think cyclists are wankers half the time. And 9 times out of 10, a cyclist drives a car. There's a very much an us and them, you know. Yeah. So I think it's kind of bringing that actually there isn't an us and them, it's just us. So that's...
I do hope. I mean, I think, you know, looking at our community, the world, and the human beings in it, I do think, and I hope, you know, our attitude towards this has changed quite a lot over this period. I think, you know, people have seen, well, a lot of people have found resilience, as you said, and you found it in yourself, and that there are things that are more important than perhaps the things we thought they were beforehand. And I think the more we can do things that collaborate with other people and just, as you said, be a little bit more relaxed about stuff is going to be a cool place to be. So let's hope so.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for spending the time with us. It was really fascinating, and we've had, as I said before, we've had different stories of people that have overcoming challenge. We've had people that have done okay, and we've had one or two like yourself that have actually, their business has been in effect, you know, gain momentum because of the situation. So that's wonderful to spread that message, and hopefully people watching this will think about, well, how can I do the same? What do I need to do? Is it a small or large change to catch on a growth curve that, you know, is probably there. Is probably there for each of us if we choose to look for it. So thank you so much.
No worries. Good to chat.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. What was your takeaway from today's interview? Please post it in the comments below and subscribe for all our upcoming videos, or click for the next video here.